Welcome to Routing for Success, the show where we interview today's top logistics professionals, giving them a platform to share their stories and best practices. Today we are talking with Wahid Bastoros. Wahid is a serial entrepreneur who recently went full cycle with his FedEx business, successfully selling it after 12 years for more than 6 times his original investment. In addition to his FedEx business, Wahid is a partner in a printing and graphics company, invests in fix and flip real estate, and he's also a partner in a company that manufactures hair tool products. Think flat irons, curlers, etc., which has widespread distribution through big retail outlets, including Walmart. At the peak of his FedEx business, Wahid was only working on it an average of 2 hours per day, affording him an abundance of time to focus on other ventures. He now uses the expertise he developed during his tenure as a FedEx contractor to sell used trucks, broker FedEx routes, and advise contractors on their businesses. I am pleased to give you Wahid Bastoros. All right, Wahid, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Great.
So we're going to talk a lot about the FedEx contracting business, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your professional background before you had ever heard of FedEx?
That's a good question. I started out as, my field of expertise was graphic design. So I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design. And that's where I started. And after that, I went in the printing business from the bottom down. Learned the whole business after finishing college. I got some training on Pratt Institute in New York. Took some Photoshop classes related to the graphic design, and then I got hooked up with a company after that they were They produce a lot of printing and scanning. So I was lucky enough. They take me in, and I learned the process and everything else. I got it quickly, and I moved up with the company, for about, a couple of years, and then I moved to another company in a manager position. Then I moved to another company with also a manager position. So I've been doing that for 15 years. So while I'm doing that, in 2003, there was a recession. If you guys remember the internet bubble. So at that time, business in special printing was tough. So we decided to start our own company, me and a friend of mine. So we started a brokerage printing company at that time. We really did very well. We grabbed some corporate accounts where we could do collaterals for all the corporate, business cards, letterhead, you name it. And we landed up a good account, and it was a huge success because we fixed their problem. Although we're a small company, but we fixed a major problem for them, and it worked out great. So after that, being in the printing business, it's, as you know, printing and shipping are very connected field. So if you print, you gotta ship. So part of my daily job when I was in printing business is calling and finding out where are those packages customers are waiting for stuff. And it's printing is due date is the most important. So we call, and so in my daily work, it would be like calling FedEx, figuring out what's going on with my packages and stuff like that. It was just daily thing. And then it turned out to be I like the company, I like the model, I like how they do things, and that's how it started. Then after that, I did my search for 6 months, and I realized that I could do FedEx Contracting, which a business that requires, not a lot of time. You don't have to be hands-on. You can run, turnkey operation. So that was my, business that I was looking to get, and it turned out to be to become a FedEx contractor requires very little. So please stop me if I'm just keep going. But so after that, I got a FedEx contract.
Okay. Yeah. So pausing real quick, just to rewind a little bit, because I always think it's really interesting. How people hear about this business, because the logistics industry as a whole is absolutely massive, and FedEx Contracting is a pretty big business in of itself. But it's a kind of a well-kept secret. There's not a lot of people who know about it. So you were in the graphic design and printing business. You had some interaction with FedEx through that industry. Did you learn about FedEx contracting as an opportunity, like from a driver who walked in, or did you just stumble across it when you were searching online for business opportunities?
That's a good question. No, I knew the company in general as a concept, shipping, FedEx, and all that stuff. I respected and I liked the company as a customer because I was a customer for 15 years. But I didn't really know the ins and outs of contracting with FedEx or how does it work or any of that stuff. It's just that it started out as an idea, and then I kept searching and building on it till the idea became much stronger. And then I went out, and then I actually approached people to buy FedEx route. So, and like I said, I did look on my own to purchase FedEx route. But honestly, this process, due to the complication, especially now, you require some handholding. You need somebody to help you through the process. It's complicated and it's a big investment. So I decided to go with a broker because my 2 attempts failed, and now we're talking about 12 years ago. And because some people back out and it's just not cemented, and you don't have like, things are just not not like cemented. So you talk to people, but when you have a broker, it works very similar to the real estate broker. That's why we have real estate brokers, because they kind of like work out the little details and make sure everybody's doing his part when he needs to do that. So long story short, I put a deposit on this route, and it was in Times Square, and I really didn't think twice about it. I was just I did the deal very quick. I went in and I hired the lawyer to write up because you were asking me, I didn't have any experience with FedEx as a contractor. So I came in, empty handed. So I needed to strengthen my position a little bit. So I went in and I wrote something called RFI, which is request for information. But that's how you get into FedEx. They ask you, it's similar to your resume. So I went in and I hired the lawyer. I paid him tons of money. So he gave me like 50-page document, and so I went to FedEx manager and I gave him the documents and all that stuff. And then he looked at it. It's like, I need two pages only. You can keep that. So, thank you very much. But that puts me in a very strong position, because of doing that, I'm now able to help other people to get into FedEx. And long story short, right now, after all those years, I'm helping. I have an example right now. I have a couple that they wanted to go into FedEx. They didn't have any experience with FedEx. A guy had an experience with Verizon for like 20 years, and then the lady had some, payroll background. So I prepped them. I send them my RFI, and I take them from point zero to the finish line. Right now, actually, today we got a good call that they're doing negotiation, which is the last step of the contracting. So it's well done, and they're super happy about it. So that gives me a good feeling, like you can show people the way how to get things done, because that's you need somebody to tell you. I mean, I went in almost blind, and it was tough in the beginning because you don't know how to handle certain situation, but I got it. So now I'm giving it to people, what FedEx requires and stuff like that. So along the way, when I started with FedEx, honestly, I was doing this. When I started, I told you, I started out with 1 truck and 1 spare, and that was it. So it was a very small operation. Maybe like the team was like 3 people or 4 people. And when I actually exited FedEx about a couple of months ago, so when I exited out after about 10 years, I was 16 trucks, and I was like maybe 19 personnel. So the operation to me was very successful. I came in, I executed, I went out. So I got the whole thing cover.
Yeah, so you went full cycle on the FedEx business, and I think that a lot of people listening to this episode are going to be very curious to hear about that story start to finish. So, but just to recap, so you heard about FedEx, you attempted to close on a couple route purchases yourself without any outside help. Really, not really knowing what you were doing because you were new, and neither of those worked out. So ultimately, you ended up getting in contact with a broker who presented you with an opportunity to buy the route, which was Times Square. And when you and I were talking off the air, I think that you had called it the Ferrari of FedEx routes.
Yes.
Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah. We have this theme between us, the contractors, like we talk about like whose route is good, So we play around with the name. So yeah, this is the Ferrari. I mean, technically, okay, to give you also an inside story, not all FedEx routes are the same, just to be aware of that. So it's not the same because it depends. It's like any other business. Like if the operation is complicated, then that means it's going to cost you money. And if it costs you money, then you're going to make less money. Therefore, it's not that attractive. It's very simple. I mean, when you look at it this way, it's very simple. So if you have a nice and easy operation, then most likely you'll be able to make more money, obviously. And so being in Times Square, I guess the essence is that we have, for example, just to give you, what's good and bad. For example, if you have like a lot of like big buildings where like they have doorman, you deliver to the doorman, then it's easier operation, obviously. So you spend less time doing it, and therefore it's good. Versus if you have buildings where you have to go and deliver to each apartment, for example, then that will take a substantial amount of time. So, and don't get me wrong, I do have the good and bad. Times Square, because I was more into residential, because I was like home delivery first, and then I got to what they call overlap, which, then I got mixed up with business, and I got business. But I can tell you the story because it was really good story. Like when I started, there was, like I said, one truck. It was a very small operation, and it would run the whole zip code with one truck. So, but then from day one, my way of doing things with FedEx, and especially in the beginning, is I thought all the contractors are not my competition. I already figured that out from the first day. Your contractors are not your competition, and make sure you have relationship, take care of your contractors next to you, because this is your, it's like your cover, because this business, you gotta be on the top of it every second. Like it's 24/7. I mean, it's not 24/7, but we work 7 days. So you can get a call on Sunday. You gotta expect that. So, so I knew that you needed to be, in order to be strong, you need to have allies around you. And that was my biggest thing. From day one, I had good relationship with all the contractors around me. And also the second thing was building a very good team. So those two things will take you to the finish line. Those are the biggest two. Because when I look back at what I did with my team and how things worked out, I realized that when I helped my team, especially the top guys, it came back very strong and support me. So there is situations where, and it happens in life where you're about to lose your guy. And at that time, he wasn't like a big guy. He was just a guy, right? But you helped him out, and you stand behind it, and you made sure you had a good fight for him, and you make him survive. Then you're a home run. So that's what I technically did. I took care of everybody around me. So my team was solid as steel. And that's why I grow so fast. Like I was able to make deals, and I was able to, one of the things that I did, like I bought routes in Park Avenue. It's a very nice area in New York City. And I made the deal. And again, because my team was strong enough, we were able to go in and take on the deal. And I had that for about a year and a half. Then I sold that because it was going to split me between two stations, and I didn't want it to be in two stations because you have to deal with two sets of managers. However, that was my analogy. There's a lot of contractors have multiple stations and they can manage, but to me, it was tremendous amount of headache because I was doing other stuff. I was doing still my printing and other stuff, so I didn't want it to, split myself too thin. So I sold that out, moved on to the next station. Then we did where the overlap, which was required by FedEx. Then, like I said, one of the days, like I said, my idea was always to, with a very strong team, always have extra of everything. I had extra trucks, extra personnel. I was always ready for anything. And due to that, we used to go out in the season and guess what? Help other contractors, help FedEx. So FedEx would have me, call me and said, look, we got this here. Can you go help out? And I would go and help out. And honestly, this a good money for people that maybe they're not familiar with FedEx. You get paid about 300%, up to 300%, and even more if you go help out in the season time, which is November, December. So this was a good channel for me, and I built it very strong. Like I said, we kind of mastered it for the last 4 or 5 years. We've done really well, and anybody needs help, I would go and help them out. So it's a win-win situation. You're helping the contractors not failing, and FedEx is compensating you with great money. So there's no loss here, but you really need to know how to execute. So we were able to execute. So that was great.
And Wahid, you're referring to doing contingency work, right? Okay. Yeah. So just to recap a little bit. So Times Square was the first route that you got, and you talked a little bit about how not all routes are created equal. And the thing that makes Times Square so desirable as a route, or other routes like Times Square, is the fact that you have high-rise buildings, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, and effectively what that allows you to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to picture this in my mind. A typical route, you have to drive from one doorstep to the next doorstep to the next doorstep, and those are your stops. Whereas if you have a high-rise building, maybe there's a different tenant on every floor, or maybe there's multiple tenants on every floor.
Right.
So I can envision how that would allow you to get some dollies or some sort of cart or something, and use the elevator, and you could do stop after stop after stop without ever having to get back in the truck. Exactly. It seems like that'd be very profitable. Yeah. It's an efficient way to make money.
Definitely, like I said, it's a very simple analogy. If the job takes less time, then you'll be able to do more within the same amount of hours, and therefore your expenses low and your profit still the same. So therefore it becomes better. So yeah. So I mean, also you can imagine, and I'm gonna give you the bad also, that like this is the good, but the bad would be like being in business. Like in Times Square, I told you, I'm part of every event in the United States of America. Like if they have a yoga for 2,000 people, I'm involved in that. If United Nations is adjourned, I'm part of that. I have to show, my guys have to show IDs. It'll be like FBI, CIA, everybody's around. You got to watch, what's going on. The New Year Eve, every event. But we got used to it. But we handle it. We went through it and we got used to it. But it is very challenging to be on Times Square. So doing business in Times Square, that's also another challenge because you have to, certain buildings, every building has its own rules, and you have to go through security and you have to deliver to different companies. So it might take long time to deliver. So I have the good and bad, but in all, it's a very good business,
Yeah, and for me, Wahid, I think the important takeaway here, and hopefully for other people listening too, is that every route is different. And it's not necessarily that one route is inherently better than another. Maybe there is a little bit of that, but it seems like you just have to know what the good and the bad are. And, last week I interviewed this guy, Chris Welchko. He has over 150 employees, 8 CSAs. A lot of his areas are rural, very high mileage, mountainous areas. And something that he had said is that a lot of FedEx contractors think that rural routes are just not profitable. Do your best to avoid rural routes. And he had said that's not necessarily true. You just have to know how to run them. You have to understand that the vehicle you pick is going to be incredibly important. You need to pick a vehicle. And what he does is he would buy vans and lift them. And then, for the mountainous areas where, and that is just a completely different ball game compared to what you're talking about, which is parking a truck in front of a high-rise building and going floor to floor to floor. It's extremely dense. It doesn't get any more dense than that and less rural. It's like the opposite of rural. But it's not all good. I mean, like you had said, there's some challenges that go along with that as well.
So I guess you're 100% right. There is challenges in every route, but honestly, there is like challenges that you can fix. Like if you're in a bad neighborhood, for example, I would stay away from that, because the problem with that is just the headache. Every package becomes a dispute or a complaint, you know what I mean? And that creates extra layer of work and also problems. And then, you have to avoid complaints by any means, because FedEx will look at you and you have to answer to them if you have so many complaints. Why are you having so many complaints? So by having a good area, that's a plus. And then the rural business, it's definitely different. And like, I give you an example. I mean, I can drive trucks that older, and I mean, you'll be surprised. All my fleet are older trucks. I never went for the high-end trucks. The reason being was I didn't have to drive so much. But if you're in a rural area, that's a fatal mistake. You must have brand new trucks, and you must have everything up to code, because you don't have a chance. Like if you missed one box, that's like 20 miles. It's not a joke. So you really have to know what you're doing, and then you have to have a good truck, reliable. In my case, I didn't need to do that. But what I'm saying to you, every route is different. That was true, because every route, you have to think about what's best for your route.
Yeah, and routes are typically measured in stops and miles. So, someone with a rural route, they may do 200 or even 300 miles per day, but it's going to be very low stop count. I mean, they may only have 50 stops in a day.
Right.
What were those figures, just very roughly, for the Times Square route?
Sure. I mean, it's insanely to the other side. I drive 4 miles and 4 miles back.
4 miles, so 8 miles a day.
8 miles a day. That's why I told you I don't need new trucks. And then I'm very dense. I'm gonna give you like a picture, so hopefully you can envision this. 1,200 apartments in one building, Times Square, right? That's probably a whole block, if in a rural area. So I'm very condensed. I'm vertical versus horizontal. So for me, I don't need new trucks, but I need people to know how to, run the business, be able to handle hand carts. We have big hand carts that folds, and it holds up to 50, sometimes 20 to 30 boxes on the hand cart. You take that and you move with that. So it's completely different business. But because I told you, because we did contingency, I'm very well aware of how to run a rural area, because most of the time that's where we go and help. So that's completely different game. Like when I load my truck, I'm just stacking it, so it doesn't take time. But when you do rural area, you have to go by the label, and you have to go by sequence number, and you can't mess it, because if you miss one box, you're not going back to deliver that, because it's history. So you have to be very precise. You have to use the map, the scanner, extra software if needed be, and you have to be very good. You have to be on the point. Otherwise, if you miss, then you end up with going back with a lot of boxes, because it's harder to go back and lose. You can't lose the day for one box. You have to sacrifice something. So again, every route is different, but luckily I do have experience in most of the routes due to me helping out, because when you help out, you know what's involved. So I helped out also in my station for months, for 3 or 4 months with 3 drivers. In COVID, I helped with 3 trucks in Brooklyn. So again, helping out, it's good for everybody. Good for me, good for other people, and good for FedEx. So it works great. So I recommend, if anybody want to go into FedEx, try to learn, and I'm happy to share this information. How to do every contractor I talked to, I said, yeah, listen, do contingency because, first of all, you're helping, but you're making money too. So there's nothing, it would be beneficial for everybody. So I recommend that.
Yeah, something else that I want to go back to that I wrote down that you had mentioned very briefly, and then I got you off track talking about the routes. But you talked about focusing on your people, and you had talked about really investing time with your people, and that was something that enabled you to be successful in the business. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Sure.
Let's drill down into that. What were you talking about there? I guess strategically, what were some best practices that you would put into place with regards to your people, and then how did that benefit your business?
Honestly, the way I started the business, I had a full-time job while I had my route. So in the beginning, I didn't have enough time to be able to handle every situation hands-on in every second. So I realized from day one that I need to build a team that can work, on its own with my instruction and with the least interference from my side. Like I'm not hands-on, and I've seen so many people do that. It's not, and that's why I'm saying that, because it could be done. I'm one example I've done it. It was hard in the beginning because you're handling two different things. But again, I only succeeded because, like I said, in the beginning, I had a team that wasn't mine. So be prepared to, when you go in, at one point, you have to build your own team. You can use somebody else's team. It could work for a little while, but it's not going to be your team. So you have to build your own team, and you have to take care of your people. The little things goes a long way. So you have to talk to them about things. They come to where, ask you questions. They need a day off to do something. They have a problem with child support. You have to take care of the little things. And sometimes FedEx go after people and they want to fire them, right? And I stand behind every one of my guys to the end. Like, you're not firing this guy unless you give me evidence that you need to. So stuff like that would help, because when you take care of people, people take care of you back. So that was my analogy. That was my way of doing things from day one. And it worked out great. Because, like I said to you, the benefit was substantial for me. Because one day, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but the reason I grow so big is also, one day I was trying to buy other people routes in my station and actively looking. And, it didn't work out for one reason or another. Maybe FedEx said you gotta be too big, or things didn't work out. So one day I was trying to buy this guy out, and he called me and said, "Look, I'm trying to sell this route." And I said, "Okay, I'll look into it, and it's in my area." So I went into FedEx just to check to see if it's okay to take on. Then they said, "Okay, we can help you take this route if you be able to achieve, if you can maintain it or you can handle it." So I went to my team, had a meeting with them, the big three. I said, "Guys, we're going to take this over. Are you able to take?" Because if you said no, I'm going to walk away. It's not a problem. But if you said yes, then we're going to do it forever. And guess what? They all said yes. And I went in the next day. I said, "Okay, yes, we'll be able to help you out." And we got it. And it was like we grow our size, double the size overnight. So
doubled overnight. Yeah. And so just to make sure I understand, so you were doing business, you had your team, and you were presented with an opportunity to take on a new area, but it would effectively double the size of your operation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And instead of just saying yes, you actually took the time to gather your team, your employees, to give them a say. And just, I know I'm just summarizing what you had gone over, but you basically told them, "Hey, look, like, this is a good opportunity. If we do it, it's going to be a tremendous amount of work, but it'll be very rewarding. But I need you to be bought into this. So do all of you want to do it?" And everyone raised their hand and said, "Yes, we're in."
Right.
That's awesome.
Because I tell you the other way around. You wake up in the morning and say, "Guys, guess what? We're going to stay till 12 o'clock forever," or whatever it takes. And it's going to be chaos. And FedEx is going to come after us if we don't deliver. Are you ready for that? That's going to be a no. So I didn't do that. I said, look, it's going to be tough, but everybody's going to get rewarded. And of course, everybody got rewarded, very handsomely. So, so it's a risk and reward game, but I already got him to agree. That's a key. Anything you want to do, discuss with your team, because you as your team, your company is the team. So company is not the name, company is the team. So like I said, when you make sure that your team is aligned with you, they know what you're thinking about, and you give them a nice challenge. People love challenge, but when you give people just, throw stuff at them, they hate it, So I converted to a challenge and everybody loved it. And of course they got rewarded. So it was not only I'm challenging you to the next level, but also I'm giving you money for it. So it was really a win-win situation, honestly. So
and how did you? So Wahid, how did you get the opportunity to take on that new area? Were you? I mean, you were in the terminal management's good graces. I'm assuming that they wanted you to take on the new area.
And also, not only I was helping contractors, also I was helping the station. Like for example, here's the little thing that could help you out if you're a contractor or if you want to become a contractor. They ask you for a box. Like let's say somebody left a box and you have the truck still here in the station. Take the box with you. Take the box, give it to the other contractor, deliver it, do whatever. It's very small things, like I said, small things, but it will go a long way. So I used to be very strict with my team on the small things. It's like if the station asks you to take 3-4 boxes, just take it, man. I'll buy you lunch. Just take it, lunch on me, take care of it. And they know that. They don't ask me anymore. They know what to do. They just go help out. So the key is help out as much as you can, and you're gonna get rewarded for it. That's the key. So the agreement with Times Square, luckily that happened in I think February, and I'll try to explain to you this because in October or September we gear up a lot of personnel because we're getting ready for the season, we're getting drivers, more trucks, buying trucks, getting trucks ready, all the good stuff, right? So what happens after the season, we have to lay off all those people because we can say to them, you're seasonal. If you're good, maybe you'll stay, but this is a seasonal job. So they all leave, right? But it's all agreed upon, so it's not a surprise. Here's what happened. That was in February. When they tell me this and my team said, okay, I called literally every guy from my season. I grabbed like 7-8 people. I tell them, come meet me. They can meet me. You're hired back. Okay, let's do this, do that. So I tighten up. It's like you grab a team, the whole team, in one day. It's not easy. But like I said, I was lucky that it was right after the season. So I had a lot of personnel in my bucket. And also I always have enough people. Like I told you, I was planning. I'm always bigger than I need to be. So I'm ready to take on. So I was ready for it. And then the trucks, the same way. I had extra trucks. At that time, I got like three or four more trucks immediately. And it worked out great because the first day, it was the most difficult day. Can you imagine? So we stayed till like 11 o'clock at night that first day. But once we got done, the first day was the most important day. Once you go through that, you're okay. So we did that. And then we kept going since then, never stopped, never had bad service, never had problems with FedEx. So we did it,
So at the peak of your business, Wahid, and I know that you came in, you bought certain areas, you sold certain areas. So it wasn't it wasn't an all at once thing, but can you remember at the peak of your business, what was your highest employee count that you ever had at one time?
Probably, I'm not a big guy in terms of size. I'm probably 22, 23, but that's fairly small compared to other FedEx contractors. Some people, like you mentioned, 150 and bigger. Some people have 40 different routes. I'm not big in size, but the way it ran, it was successful. You could duplicate it but that's the size that I was in. I mean, even if it was small and double my size, that's still substantial to anybody. Because when I came in, and like I said to you, when I came in, when I purchased my routes, and when I exited, that was at the least was 6x. So I came out 6x times what I did, and that's just to show that it was successful operation. And then while I was there those years, I was making very good money. So it worked out great for me as an experience building a team. And again, like I said, if you focus on the team and if you focus on taking care of the little problems, you will gain a huge advantage over a lot of other people.
So you bought into the business. You started out very small, but you built a team. You grew your route. You always made sure to help out other contractors and help out the terminal whenever they asked for it.
Mhm.
That put you in a good position to get granted more areas for free. I mean, you were just given new
Right.
areas that were adjacent or butted up to your existing area. So you
Right.
bought in, but then you were able to grow it substantially with very little additional investment on your part.
Exactly.
You were in the business for about 12 years, was it?
About 12 years.
About 12 years. Like you had said, you made great money. So the business was cash flowing. It was a good business. It was good income for you. And then after 12 years, you sold the business. So you went full cycle and you sold it for about 6x your initial investment,
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
Now, Wahid, I know that you're kind of a serial entrepreneur. You talked about the graphics business and FedEx. I know that there's other businesses that you're involved with. But for someone thinking about getting into FedEx, there's definitely going to be people listening to this episode who are not existing contractors, but maybe they're thinking about getting into it, but they're also considering other industries and other types of businesses that they could get into. What would you tell someone like that who's listening to this about what they might want to be thinking about, good, bad, and ugly, for the FedEx Ground contracting opportunity?
Sure. Do your search, first of all. Do your own search. Look around, read, ask people that they've been before and friends, the people they trust, and try to build your own opinion on it. Because, every business is different and everybody's risk tolerance is different, ability to handle tough situations. So you got to really figure all that out. If you're okay with what you hear, then it's fairly easy. And part of the thing, like I said, I'm doing now since I left, I'm advising other people how to get into FedEx. And honestly, being there for 12 years, I understand the system, how it works, what's required, how to get in, how to get approved, which is becoming much more difficult than when I started. Now you have to have multiple interviews, and they ask you questions about the contract, specific points. You need to know what you're doing. They're trying to make sure the person coming in understands what he's up for and what's asked of him. So therefore, they minimize the failure, obviously. So stuff like that, I can help. Obviously, I can help people do that stuff. I can figure out the numbers, for example. Right now, I'm partnering with a broker, and we're doing that where we go and find anybody's looking to get into FedEx. I become the advisor, part of the equation, and hold hands, give people exactly step by step what exactly vendors you're gonna use, who to call, what's the best deal, which way to go, and get yourself aligned to become a contractor. Just put in your head what is the contractor. And like I said, the benefit of being a contractor is, like I said, you could run it once you establish yourself. You can run it fairly hands-free, like you do a little bit of time, and it's gonna run great. So that's part of what I'm doing now. Also, the trucks, I'm helping people with trucks also, because again, being in the business, buying trucks every day, it started out like helping other contractors. I'm grabbing trucks. Okay, you want more, and it turned out I'm helping other people to buy trucks. And it's good. Again, it's part of giving service to people. Like if you need something, let me know and I'll help you out. If I have it, I'll help you. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, and Wahid, I imagine that there's probably a lot of people who would be interested in talking with you because I feel like you have a unique perspective on the business. It's not like you're not one of the operators that was doing it for 30 years and that it's all that you knew and that was your career. You've done lots of different things. We were talking before. You've fixed and flipped homes. You had your graphics, your career in graphics and printing. You had also mentioned that you're a partner in a manufacturing company that manufactures like hair tools, like curlers and irons and different things like that, that has widespread distribution in Walmart. So you do lots of different things, but you also figured out how to be successful in FedEx, and you went full cycle. You bought in, you made good money while you did it, you grew it, you learned the fundamentals of both having a very dense route and doing contingency work and running rule. So you really know the entirety of the business for P&D. And then you sold the business for 6 times your initial investment over a 12-year period. I mean, that just sounds like that's like an overwhelming success story. I'm sure that there's people listening to this who say, "That's what I want. That's what I want to do." And so now but now you've taken that experience and you're looking to help other people. So now you're advising others who are thinking about getting into the business or want to improve their business. You're doing route brokering. So if there's anyone who's thinking about getting in, they could talk to you about that. And then what are you doing with trucks? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the trucks again, like you know how in the season, like I said, we have to prep and stuff like that. And I would go and buy like 4 or 5 trucks, and then my friend in the station said, "Hey, if you want a truck, I got this, it's ready." So kind of like give the service again. It's part of the service. Like you can go and buy a truck. Anybody knows how to go and buy a truck, especially contractors. We all know how to do it. But when you give the service, you give the truck right there. Tell them to check it out. It's right there. That's in your backyard. If you said yes, your headache is gone. So technically, you give people headache free. I always try to give headache free to people. Like don't take my analogy to that is because I came from customer service from printing, obviously. So my whole thing is about customer services. Take the headache from your customer to your head, and that's how you get your customer for life. Because that's how it works. Like if somebody's looking for something, why they're not doing it? Because they're busy doing too many things, and it takes time. And you have to check. You have to drive 3 hours to go get this truck. You have to check everything. So if you do everything for everybody, and they come in and look at it, and they turn it on, tickets are out. It's beautiful, done. It's a done deal. So what I'm saying to you, it's a service. So, and the same goes with FedEx customers. I was very good at that, by the way. My score with the highest. Like they would say, "Okay, give it to Wahid, he'll figure it out." I called people. I asked them what's the problem. I figured out how to fix it. I fixed it immediately, and I gave him my phone number. I said, "Look, even if this was a problem, but in the future, you got my phone number. I'll give you a lot of free services. Just call me. I can arrange to give you free something called scheduled delivery. That's FedEx charge for that. I'll give it for free. It's like I'll give you scheduled delivery. I'll take care of things." So customer service part was engraved in my head, and I also give it back to my team. It's like, listen, whatever the customer wants, take care of the customer first. Everything else works out after. So that was my learning. That's why I had a good rapport with FedEx, because again, my score is high. They're not expecting me to do anything that's bad, because I understand customers goes first. Take care of your customer. Everybody will be happy. You're not going to get complaint. So that was another thing that's part of that. But yeah, with the trucks, like I said, giving service, helping people, and it became so easy. Like, if you want a truck, and it happens so many times. Like people in the season, sometimes they don't realize that the volume is coming. It's only a few weeks away, and it takes time to prepare that stuff. But you give them something at his doorsteps, then they say, "Yes, let's do it." And I've done so many deals like that right before the season. It's like, "Okay, here, the truck is right there. Take it." And it works great, because if you don't have a truck, that's a big problem. So better have trucks in the season.
So, Wahid, I'm going to put you on the spot, and it's okay if you don't remember this off the top of your head, but just looking back to your FedEx business going full cycle, you bought in, you made money for 12 years, and then you sold it for 6 times what you bought it. Did you ever do an internal rate of return, an IRR calculation on the money, for all of the 12 years
That's a
that
very
you were in
good
the business?
question. I don't know if I ever did this like year to year. It was profitable. I never really went down to check it. I guess, yeah, it's being a little naive, but just because the reason, like, again, I didn't go that deep because obviously for a long while I was running FedEx while I had a full-time job. I'm sure I told you that. So that's why, that's part of the reason I didn't grow bigger. Like I could have done much bigger, but I was also tied up with other responsibilities. So I was always doing something next to FedEx. It was never just FedEx alone,
Yeah.
but it was always profitable. Just
How many how many hours a week were you working on your FedEx business? Because you had a full-time job.
For almost few years, I mean, good few years, I only did few hours a day. Like only 2 hours a day. So that's part of, and I'm encouraging people to do that. I mean, it is difficult, I have to say, but I was able to do it. I was able to juggle this, but it kind of like, I didn't grow fast. I had the security with the job, but the minute I moved out to be full entrepreneur, I grow substantially. So my recommendation is, yes, you could do it in the beginning just to do a soft landing. And then right after that, if you see yourself doing good, continue on yourself. You continue on your own. You don't have to take a job. Job is going to be, it's going to slow you down. And honestly, I realized this late in life. When I told you about the fix and flip and all that good stuff, I've done that when I was fully available. So my time was completely mine. And I've done the fix and flip. I've done like 4 or 5 deals here in New York. And we would take stuff, needs a lot of work and fix it up, get contractors. Honestly, it's not very different. The reason I went into that business, just to give you an idea, it's not very different from contracting with FedEx. Technically, you're contracting another person. So I remember one time in my life, I had 50 people working for me. That was a Friday. And I had to lay out a lot of money because that was the payday for all those people. And I smiled at myself because there's 50 people running around doing completely different things. And it was all under my command. So that felt good, that to have a big team running and completely different operations. Like not all FedEx. I had like 20 people doing stuff with the houses, other people doing deliveries and, office manager, all that stuff. That felt good. Like, to be able to run things like that feels good, So yeah. And then after the fix and flip, and then I had land, buy and sell lands. I did, yeah, my latest venture. I mean, you have to think about it if you're asking me why I'm doing it. Business is a cycle, it can't, it's always peaks, I mean, it's even, you look at even the big companies, everything peaks and then goes down. So what I try to do is I go in, I peak, and then I get out, and then I go again and peak, so to me it works. I don't know if it's my nature or that's, but it works for me. It works for me. You go in small, you build, and then you go out. That's how I see it. So I did that with the houses. I did that with FedEx, as you can see. So the last venture was the hair tool business. It's a much bigger project, and we had this company, and it was high valuation, big stuff, and we've been working on the contract for 2 years. Lawyers, big language, big money, but we're buying it, substantially cheaper. And it's, to me, honestly, if you're asking me how did you go into that business, to me, when they asked me, I said, this is a massive fix and flip. It's just a massive fix and flip. It's a huge, but it's the same concept. You go in, you need to prepare some stuff. You work out, your team, get a better team, cut your waste, your extras, your fat, and get lean. and move forward and keep going. That's in a simple strategy, the same way, works everywhere. It's the same concept. So it's not difficult to, once you have the business mentality, you can apply it. Like I said, if you trust in your team and you apply that to any business, it would work very similar, you know?
Yeah, Wahid, this reminds me of something that one of our previous podcast guests had mentioned, which is you need to put yourself in a position to work on the business, not in the business.
Right.
Because I talk to a lot of contractors who are living in the business day to day, trying to do everything themselves. And frankly, a lot of them sound like they're pulling their hair out or their hair is falling out on its own. But you're someone where you've been able to spin multiple plates. I mean, you've got multiple things going at any given time, whether it's a full-time job and some sort of entrepreneurial activity at the same time, or if you don't have a full-time job, you have multiple ventures going. And I think that that's something that's inspiring, probably for a lot of people listening to this, is that you got your business to the point where it was making money. You had a really good team established, and you're only working on the business maybe 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week, something like that for FedEx. And so I think that's good stuff. Wahid, I want to be mindful of our time. Is there anything else that you want to talk about while we're here?
I'm gonna strengthen your last point. Yes, don't. For example, if you want to be a FedEx contractor, don't drive every day. That would be wrong move. To save $50,000-$60,000, this is absolutely the worst move to make, because you can think of yourself, you are much more, you're worth more, and you can't just minimize yourself to become a driver. First of all, if you do that, then you don't have a backup. Then you don't have your time, which is your valuable asset. Then you can't go and do stuff like I just told you. I did all this stuff because I technically ran my operation, just like you said, monitor, fix, improve, and keep going every day. Build a strong team, depend on your team solely, and try to keep things tighten up, reward your people, and keep doing that everywhere. Don't just focus on, one thing and becoming a driver. That's like the absolute worst, because he can't grow. If I'm a driver, if I started this same business and I became a driver, I would have never done any of what I just told you. I would have never been able to sell. I would have never been able to buy other routes and go in. I would never be able to double my size in overtime. None of that. So if somebody want to go and just become that's a no. You gotta be hands free. You gotta free your time so you'll be able to do other stuff and just build a strong team to support your vision. So yeah, I think lastly, I guess if anybody needs help, I'm happy to help people with any of the stuff that related to FedEx in terms of brokeraging. If you have a route you want to sell, I can definitely help you do that. If you wanted to buy a route, I can definitely help you do that. Especially the people like they don't have experience in FedEx, I'll be happy to help, and I'll get you to the finish line. That's for sure, because we've done it before. So
yeah, Wahid, how can people find you or get a hold of you?
Sure. You can email orders at artberry.com. That's ORDERS at ARTBERRY.com. Orders at artberry.com. And Artberry is like art and berry like strawberry. So Artberry, one word, and .com, and orders with the S. So it's
yeah, and I'll put that email address in the show notes. So if you're listening to this and you want to get a hold of Wahid, whether to talk about an existing business, his advisory services to help you fine tune your business, or if you're thinking of getting in or getting out and you want route brokering services or anything related to used trucks, check out the show notes and I'll make sure to put that email address in there. I think that's a good place to sign off. Wahid, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I hope you had fun doing this. And
that was great. Thanks so much.
All right.
I appreciate it, Paul.
Right on. I appreciate you, Wahid. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Have a great day.
Routing for Success is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. In today's competitive market, it is essential to acquire the right trucks at a fair price and finance them in a way that makes sense for your business. Leveraging their extensive network of truck and van suppliers, the experts at AP Equipment Financing will help you locate the best deals on step vans, cutaways, panel vans, and more. Deliver them straight to your facility and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description or visit apfinancing.com for more information. Routing for Success is an independent production of AP Equipment Financing and is in no way affiliated with or endorsed by FedEx Corporation, FedEx Ground, Amazon, or any other logistics company discussed herein. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Routing for Success.